Hello everyone, my name is Tarun Chopra, Senior Software Engineer with Microsoft. Microsoft Teams, as you all know, is a messaging app for your organization which is part of M365 Suite. It serves as a hub for real-time collaboration and communication built upon the foundations of interoperability and extensibility. During this session, we'll explore few scenarios aimed at integrating these extensible and collaborative features into your applications. Agenda for this session: we're going to discuss two essential scenarios within Microsoft Teams calendar events and files, and delve into strategies for incorporating these into your application or solution. Brief overview of Graph Toolkit, followed by demo. Let us talk about calendar events. On left-hand side, we have a very familiar UI from Microsoft Teams calendar app. Microsoft Teams calendar feature offers a range of benefits that streamline your scheduling and planning. With this feature, you get immediate visibility into your planned activities with automatic color coding and categorization. What sets it apart is the seamless synchronization of your data across devices, eliminating the hassle of cross-checking multiple calendar within various applications. Moreover, the calendar feature simplifies the process of scheduling resources such as rooms and AV equipments for your events, ensuring a smooth and efficient planning experience. Microsoft Graph, which is a unified API endpoint, allows developer to access data from various M365 services including calendars and events. It enables you to integrate calendar and event management features into your applications. To list some, it allows you to list events, create events, check availability, reschedule events, and add your attachment to these events. Now let us talk about files. Files in a Microsoft Team channel provide a structured and collaborative environment for teams to work together on documents, fostering efficient communication and seamless sharing within the context of their projects and discussions. With built-in compliance, governance, and versioning, you ensure the security and integrity of your documents throughout their life cycle. Sharing files becomes effortlessly streamlined, promoting effective collaboration and communication. The ability to co-author in real time from mobile, desktop, and web platform enhances productivity. Moreover, the convenience of accessing files offline ensures that your work continues unhindered regardless of connectivity challenges. Microsoft Graph provides a comprehensive set of APIs for working with files and documents across M365 services. These APIs offer developers the tools to build application that integrates seamlessly with M365 file storage and document management capabilities. To list some: list children, create folder, get thumbnails, secured sharing, and store metadata against files. So far we have covered specifics of calendar and files user interface in Microsoft Teams and along with their associated Graph APIs. However, it might still be unclear how these elements come together to seamlessly integrate this experience into your own application or solution. This is precisely where the Graph Toolkit steps in to bridge the gap. Microsoft Graph Toolkit is a collection of reusable, framework-agnostic components and authentication providers for accessing and working with Microsoft Graph. The components are fully functional, customizable, and work with any web framework and all modern browsers. Microsoft Graph Toolkit has following built-in React components, namely Person Card, People Picker, Agenda, File and File List, To-Do and Planner, Teams Channel Picker, Get and Generic Picker, Conversation one-on-one. Why use Microsoft Graph Toolkit? It cuts development time as one can easily add UI components to access Microsoft Graph to the app within just a few lines of code. It's beautiful but flexible, built to look like an M365 experience but fully customizable, and it works everywhere as it's based on web standards and works with any web framework and modern browsers. Let's examine a few Graph Toolkit components and explore the capabilities they offer. First is Authentication MGT Login. A login component is a button and flyout control to facilitate Microsoft Identity Platform authentication. It provides two states. When user is not signed in, the control is a simple button to initiate the sign-in process. When user is signed in, the control displays the current signed-in username, profile image, and email. When clicked, a flyout is opened with a command to sign out. You can also allow signing with multiple accounts. This will list all your sign-in accounts and give you an option to sign in with other new accounts. The MGT Agenda web component represents events in a user or group calendar. By default, the calendar displays the current signed-in user events for the current day. As visible on the right-hand side, you can easily integrate this component by simply using the MGT Agenda tag. Moreover, when you use this agenda component, you automatically gain access to rich features like presence information, persona cards, email IDs, and more, without any additional effort/cost. Below are two examples to demonstrate the extent of customization these components offer. In first case, you can change the default behavior of the component to fetch data for a specific date, and up to 3 days using days attribute. In second case, you can force the component to fetch data from a different query than the default one using event query attribute. Let us look at another component. MGT Teams Channel Picker component. You can use this component to enable search for Microsoft Teams channels associated with a user. MGT File List component. The File List component displays a list of multiple folders and files by using the file/folder name, an icon, and other properties that you specify. Let us view a couple of these components in Graph Toolkit Playground. This is the landing page for the playground. We have added QR code and link to this in subsequent slides. Following are the components which already exists. Let us look at the MGT login first. We'll click on login. There are various login components we can use. There is compact login, avatar login, a login with presence information. Show presence login will fetch your latest login state using Graph APIs and show it in the icon. There is high level of customization built into these components. As an example, if you want to right-align the login component, you can use div class right. And the other things are styles, so you can have your own custom properties. Like in this case, we have customized the CSS to change the color of login to green when signed in. We hover on the component, and it will change to green. Let's look at MGT Agenda, which is used for calendar and events. The MGT Agenda web component represents events in a user or group calendar. By default, the calendar displays the current signed-in user events for the current day. The component can also use any endpoint that returns events from Microsoft Graph. We can specify a customized query to fetch the events. Like in this case, we are getting events from March 28th to April 2nd. To show events for next week, we can specify 7 here and events for next week will be displayed. We can group the events by day or group the events by date. These components will give you similar look and feel as components used in Microsoft Teams. Can change the preferred time zone and events be displayed accordingly. The component supports several templates that allow us to replace certain parts of the component. Events. The event click event is fired from the control when clicked. As you can see, we are displaying meeting title when click me button is clicked. The final component we'll cover today before moving on to the demo app is the MGT file component. The file component is used to represent an individual file/folder from OneDrive or SharePoint by displaying information such as the file/folder name, an icon indicating the file type, and other properties such as the author, last modified date, or other details selected by the developer. We can use several properties to customize the component. File query. This is used to fetch data from a specific query. Set icon. This is used to override the default file icon. Like in this case, we have changed the icon of pptx file to this favicon. Get signed-in user files. This is used to fetch all the files/folder of signed-in user. Get file by insights. This property retrieves files that are trending, frequently used, or shared by the user. Demo. Below are the QR code of Graph Toolkit and GitHub repo of our React-based application. Our app incorporates the components discussed thus far, facilitating the development of an application that amalgamates the capabilities of Graph APIs and the Graph Toolkit. This aids developers in swiftly crafting an application with functionalities akin to those found in Microsoft Teams Calendar and Teams tabs while maintaining a similar aesthetic appeal. Moreover, this demonstration underscores the commitment of Microsoft Teams, along with other M365 applications, to prioritize interoperability and extensibility in their development. We'll pause for 15 seconds on this screen to allow ample time for scanning the QR codes. This is our locally running web application based on React. Here are a couple of characteristics of this application. On the left side, you'll notice 3 tabs: Home, Calendar, and Teams. On the right-hand side, you'll find the currently signed-in user. Additionally, you have the option to change the theme. You can switch between light and dark themes or select the team's dark theme. When you click the Show API button, it triggers the flyout control, which presents the graph call executed by any component within our application. This assists users in knowing the exact query used to populate each control. The data showcased in this control also serves as evidence that only publicly available graph APIs are utilized to retrieve information from M365. When you navigate to the Calendar tab, you'll find that it showcases the events and calendar of the signed-in user, resembling the layout and functionality of the Microsoft Teams Calendar tab. Since our tenant is preloaded with data from 2023, we've set September 2023 as the current month for this demonstration to streamline the process. Selecting previous week will retrieve and display the entries from the week prior, while next week will perform a similar action for the upcoming week. Let's conduct a side-by-side comparison of our application's calendar view with Microsoft Teams Calendar view. We'll open the Microsoft Teams app alongside our app. We see that both the apps have same entries for September 4th. Company all hands from 5 to 5:30 a.m., UX sync from 5:30 to 6 a.m., website review from 6 to 7 a.m., and so on. It's truly remarkable to witness that all the components within a calendar entry are dynamic, fetching real-time data. For instance, you can observe organizational details about line E. With the use of the MGT Agenda component, you gain access to a plethora of features effortlessly. Next, we'll examine the synchronization between 2 applications. We'll create a meeting invitation titled Demo for September 4th from 8 to 8:30 a.m. in the Microsoft Teams calendar and invite Tarun to attend. As we scroll upwards, we can observe that the event has been successfully created. Let's return to our application and refresh it to retrieve the latest entries using calendar APIs. As you can see, we now also have an entry titled Demo at 8 o'clock from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Moreover, the status information of Tarun is also real-time. I'm logged onto the machine with Tarun account, and both the sides are showing status as busy. Next, we'll proceed to cancel the calendar invite from Microsoft Teams and examine whether it gets removed from the application on the left side or not. Once the invite has been canceled, we'll refresh the application on the left side to ensure it fetches the latest entries. As you can observe, there's no meeting listed with the title Demo at 8 o'clock in the event list. Let us have a look at our Show API flyout to analyze the Graph API calls being made to fetch the entries. We will press today to trigger latest calendar entries. As expected, refresh triggered calendar view Graph API with start and end date as September 4th to September 10th. Next week button fires the same query but with data range from September 11th to September 17th. As we know, there's a notable demand for generative AI scenarios. We extended the functionality of the MGT Agenda component to summarize meetings by utilizing Azure OpenAI. We will maximize left side app and scroll down. You will notice that some invites have meeting summary button next to it. The appearance of this button for an invite is subject to 2 conditions. 1. The meeting was recorded and possesses a transcript. 2. The meeting occurred in the past. Otherwise, there will be no recording or transcript. This scenario of obtaining meeting summaries and action items is incredibly beneficial for participants who were unable to attend the meeting and lacked the time to watch an hour-long recording just to discern if there were any action items relevant to them. We'll open the Show API flyout to observe all the requests made from our application to fetch the meeting summary. There will be a total of 4 calls made to retrieve the summary. The initial calls are listed lower down, while the latest call appears at the top. The second call from the top is made to obtain the transcript, and the final call is made to Azure OpenAI to obtain the summary and action items by providing the transcript. Selecting few lines from the summary report. 1. Administrator and Adele discuss possibility of moving their office to new location. 2. They agree that current office space is getting cramped and larger space is needed. The action items section also outlines 4 follow-up tasks. 1. Administrator will work on refining the cost projection. 2. They will schedule a follow-up call. 3. They will involve HR department, and so on. Now, let's proceed to our next scenario, where we'll demonstrate how files are queried/showcased within a Teams channel. We will conduct a side-by-side comparison between our app on left-hand side and Microsoft Teams channel view on right-hand side. To provide the context, this view in Microsoft Teams show all the posts, files and other tabs associated with the channel which is accessible only to channel participants. For comparison, we will choose Mark 8 project team and will perform some operations under this team. Let's click on the design channel within this team to examine the files, and as anticipated, the names and quantity of files are identical to those in Microsoft Teams on the right. To confirm the accuracy of these links, we'll click on one of the files to ensure that we can successfully browse through it. Now, let's test the synchronization between both applications. We will click Upload button and upload a file. We will open the file to verify its content. Following that, we'll refresh our application to retrieve the most recent files. Upon refreshing, we'll expand the Mark 8 project team teams and navigate to the design channel. As expected, we'll find the test file for demo.txt file. From the perspective of the Graph API, we initiated a call to retrieve all the children of design channel root. We will click on test file for demo.txt to ensure it has content. This file will be open in new tab. With these 2 scenarios, we conclude the demonstration of our app. Hopefully, we've effectively showcased the interoperability of Microsoft Teams using Graph APIs. For the next couple of minutes, we'll explore our Teams app code repository hosted on GitHub. Please scan the QR code displayed on the screen to access the repository. Once you've accessed the link, navigate to the samples/apps/React Contoso folder. The README file in this folder lists all the steps needed to run the app locally. To test this app, you'll require a Microsoft 365 developer account and need to register your app to obtain an app ID, as well as an Azure OpenAI key. The setup instructions within the Setting Up This Sample section provide details on where to specify these keys. However, specifying an Azure OpenAI key is optional. If you choose not to specify it, the summary feature will not function. After ensuring that you've specified all the required details in the .env file, make sure to change the extension of the .env.sample file to .env. You'll need to build the sample. As mentioned in the README, you should start by executing yarn build followed by yarn start to initiate the app. Once it successfully starts, a browser will open locally on port 3000. The code for our calendar tab is located under src/pages/calendarpage.tsx. This is the file where we are using MGT agenda component. Search for agenda keyword in this file. Just a heads up that the naming convention is a bit different in TypeScript library, and the component is named agenda instead of MGT agenda. Upon closer inspection, you'll notice that we have a parameterized event query, where we pass the start date and end date as parameters getStart and getEnd. The values of these parameters change dynamically when we interact with the UI by pressing the Today, Next, or Previous buttons. Towards the end of this function, you'll observe that we've expanded the capabilities of this component by incorporating a meeting summary button. This button, as seen in demo earlier, facilitates the transmission of the call transcript to the Azure OpenAI endpoint for summarization. Let's scroll up for a quick walkthrough of the flow on this page. The calendar page function, located at line 65, is where all the magic unfolds. One of the initial observations is the necessity for an authentication token to call the Graph API from this function. Leveraging the login component, we acquire a token that will be utilized across various components for Graph API calls, eliminating the need for additional authentication handling. As demonstrated, we retrieve the access token from the global provider.getAccessToken function. For successful authentication, please ensure that the correct app_ID is specified in the .env file. If it's incorrect, your login will fail, and you won't be able to reach this point or go beyond. HandleNext calendar function is invoked when Next button in Calendar tab is clicked. As you can observe, we adjust the start date and set it to 7 days after today's date to get next week calendar entries and then pass the dates to Graph API call. Similarly, in Handle Previous Calendar function we adjust the start date and set it to -7 days from today's date to get last week calendar entries and then pass the dates to Graph API call. Handle Today is where we fetch this week's calendar entry by passing the adjusted start/end date to Graph APIs. This is our default view. Let's examine how we generate a summary from the transcript. Here, we utilize the meeting ID to retrieve the transcript from the Graph API. Once we obtain the transcript, we proceed to the Generate Summary function. Here we create the context for Azure OpenAI function call and pass the entire transcript in user content. Along with that, we specify other parameters like temperature, max_token, etc., and then make a call to openai.azure.com chat completion endpoint. Once the summarization response is received, we display it in message box using alert function. The code for our Teams tab is located under src/pages/teamspage.tsx. This is the file where we are using mgt file component. The equivalent of mgt file in TypeScript is FileList. The Graph Toolkit does not currently offer any existing components for displaying teams/channel views. Therefore, we developed our own custom component, Channel File Page, to provide this functionality. Within this component, we have utilized the FileList component to display files and folders per channel. We pass team ID and channel name to this FileList component. Channel File Page component uses few additional functions like get all my teams to fetch all the teams associated with a signed user using Graph API. Get team photo to fetch team's profile picture, and finally get channels by team to fetch list of channels under every team. Let us scroll up to observe how the UI fetches files for a given channel. In Get Selected Team Channel, we first set team ID, channel name, and channel ID. Finally, we call Graph API to list all the children of a drive item, which will fetch all the files in a given channel. To summarize, Microsoft Teams, among other M365 applications, is developed with a strong emphasis on interoperability and extensibility. Developers can access data from a range of Microsoft 365 services through Microsoft Graph, a unified API endpoint. To delve into the world of M365, create a developer account. Leverage and contribute to Graph Toolkit, which is open source, to speed up your app development. Thank you.